This review is presented by Hot Rod Cameras. Panasonic's been a trusted name in the industry for a very long time, and they've had a great resurgence recently with their GH series, and on the higher end with their new VariCam 35 and VariCam LT. But there's always been a bit of a gap in their lineup. Now, that gap has finally been filled by the EVA 1. Looking at a spec sheet alone, the EVA 1 has some exciting things and a few party pieces. The 5.7K Super 35 sensor is designed to give a crisp, clear 4K image. The camera has V-Log capabilities and shoots 10-bit 422 at 30 frames a second in 4K. It can also shoot 4K 60 at a lower bitrate. Some of the more unique things that this camera has is the removable IR filter that swings out of the way just like an ND filter would. The camera also has a dual base ISO, similar to that in the VariCam line. However, this one is 800 ISO and 2500 ISO. So basically, this sensor can act as an 800 ISO base or a 2500 ISO base. Looking at the body alone, this is a light, small camera. This is C100 and FS5 size, but it's punching above its weight and giving you specs that you'd see in the FS7 or the C300 Mark II. The camera's also designed with a bunch of mounting options, including moving the monitor to pretty much anywhere on the camera. The quarter 20s all over the top of the camera mean that you can offset the handle if you'd like to, you can add a whole bunch of extra pieces, and you can rig this up pretty much any way that you need to. The side handle is very similar to the one we get on the Sony FS5, and it's very easily adjustable, unlike the ones we get from similarly priced Canon cameras. The onboard touchscreen is an easier way to navigate menus, which means that you probably want it on board all the time. Panasonic doesn't have plans for an extension cable for this monitor yet, but hopefully a third-party company will come along and we can move that monitor just about anywhere. As much as I love the ergonomics of this camera, the only issue that I really ran into was with third-party batteries. Because of where the battery is placed, I did actually knock it a couple times, and the third-party batteries are just loose enough to lose contact for a second and pull power from the camera. That's not necessarily Panasonic's fault. If you want to stick with the Panasonic batteries, that's totally fine. It's just something to be aware of. Now getting back to the dual base ISO, which is one of the party pieces of this camera. It opens up a whole bunch of functionality and lets you look at ISO in a different way than you have with previous cameras. On a pre-launch version of the camera, I was able to look at 800 ISO at 800 ISO base and 800 ISO at 2500 ISO base, and the difference was incredible. It made me think about ISO in a different way. What this dual base ISO means is you have the option to choose between your dynamic range and a clean noise floor. Occasionally you have shoots where you don't need to stretch the dynamic range of the camera. If you have a controlled interview setup where you need a clean image, you can do that with a 2500 ISO base and a 1000 ISO shot. That functionality combined with the built-in NDs makes this a camera that can look the same in so many different lighting situations. The color gamut in the VariCam and the VariCam LT is theoretically one of the widest we've seen in a production camera, and it's supposed to be the same gamut in this camera here. It doesn't necessarily seem to function as well, but it's still really impressive. As far as log shooting goes, V-Log has always been kind of hit or miss for me. I haven't always fallen in love with the image that comes from V-Log, but compared to what I had with the GH4 and the GH5, the higher bitrate of the EVA 1 makes it so I can fix a lot of those problems. One of the things I do love is the backwards compatibility of this camera. You can use the old batteries that you had for your Panasonic HVX. The camera does have a very impressive variable frame rate mode, though it's a little clunky to get to if you're shooting in a higher resolution for your normal speed stuff and want to drop resolution for your slow-mo. All in all, I think this is going to be a great camera for documentary shooters that are going to be in any kind of situation. This is going to be great for event shooting where you're going to have to rely on the lighting around you. But at the same time, this is going to be great for higher end production that need gimbal rigs or car mounts. The weight of this camera and its ability to strip down is going to make it so much more accessible for people like gimbal shooters. This is going to be a great gimbal camera. I personally love the idea of using this camera for car mounts, especially because Panasonic did so well with their Wi-Fi capability in their mirrorless cameras that they can bring that to this camera via a USB dongle. I also love this camera for particularly finicky clients, ones that cannot stand any type of noise in their image. This is one of the cleanest images I've ever been able to capture, especially in this price range. I think this would be a great camera to own because it's a workhorse, it's well-rounded, but at the same time, it's not so plug and play that you can pick it up from a rental house and have one day of prep and know everything about it. For someone who wants a high-quality image and a light form factor and can't spend the money on a Red or an Alexa Mini, this might be the camera for you. That's all for me on the Panasonic EVA 1. I know there's so much about this camera that I wasn't able to get to, but if you have any questions, you can come down to the store in Burbank or you can visit us online at hotrodcameras.com.